Deadair Hardcore Radio, exploring the world's best hardcore punk and all the various subgenres. For the next 2 hours we will enter a world apart from the rest. The time is now.
Stand to the side, be by the hardcore ride! How can you save me when you can't save yourself? Ready to fight!
Yo, what's up with that? Let's start jamming.
Cross the line, concrete box, all alone, with my thoughts, blinding light, bow my head, close my eyes, and take a breath. And where I'm going, I'm never coming back. Run, I'm left to 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 run. Cross the line, concrete box, all alone, with my thoughts, blinding light, bow my head, close my eyes, and take a breath. And where I'm going, I know how to fuck. Just run, I'm left to 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 run. Nothing's like I'll ever make this place only my grave. Think my prison system, the clay is living no nightmare. Never see the sun again, and through the shit you'll never know. My dreams will take me out. Look me in the eye and tell me what it's like with sauce. Everything's fucked. You're left to run. I'm left to run. I'm left to run. I'm left to. I'm left to. I'm left to run.
All right, you listen to episode 87 of Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio. If you have just stumbled upon this show, we are a hardcore radio show. We play hardcore, punk, metal, and all the adjacent genres. And we just we hang out. We play music that we like. Sometimes I get my friends and they play music that they like, and we talk about the music.
Howdy.
Yeah, howdy. We have Ray Budworth. It's been like 2 years since I think you've been on the show. You came and hung out.
It has.
And now we are doing even though we live in the same town, we are now doing a social distancing episode. Special.
Big old social distance.
Big old social distance in Puyallup, Washington. You know, I want to do some hyper local talk for just a second. You know what's pissing me off?
What's grinding your gears?
The Puyallup Police Department's Facebook posts.
I have not seen them, but I did see that one. I posted actually something that they had. Whoops, that's my email. I can look up a post that I shared the other day that was from them, where it was like,
Stop committing crime. Stop committing crimes.
Like, if it were that easy, it would have already been done.
I know it was a joke, but still, as a joke, it was stupid. Literally, they just posted one this morning. That was, telling people not to mix these certain cleaning chemicals. And within the instructions, they literally put step-by-step instructions on how to make chloroform.
What?
Yeah. They put they said they mapped out what, if you cross these certain chemicals, what it makes. And then one of the things was chloroform. And I was just like,
yeah,
you literally just taught dumb, creepy people how to make chloroform at home. I mean, it's not that hard, but now you literally laid it out there for the dumb people of the internet.
Oh no!
I think they were trying to be. I think they were trying to like what they do is they try to post something like with a little tinge of humor, and it doesn't go very well. And this one was like they were supposed. I think they were trying to warn people have, don't, cross these chemicals. And if you're trying to make your own cleaning, cleaning spray or whatever, or disinfectant.
Goodness.
And instead they literally put down the recipe for chloroform.
Well, I mean, it's not like they put down like the exact recipe, but I'm not trying to split hairs.
Oh, I'm not splitting no hairs. I'm just saying, regardless, even if it's just like this and this makes chloroform, I don't think
That's still bad enough. That's still gonna try it. Either actually be successful or just bad enough to kill somebody with it.
They might end up just killing them. We might be doing someone a favor, and some creeper tries to put it together and it just knocks them out. So let's hope that's a thing.
And just removal of self from the situation. That would be great. But yeah, I'll lay down kind of what the show is going to be today. So Ray, you picked some songs and we're going to go, it's a lot of stuff that, we're going to play some of your own band. We're going to play, a lot of homie picks of friends and people that were shouting out in this episode. Also, the other half is going to be stuff that was submitted to me as of last week, because Bandcamp did the whole thing where they cut all the fees so the artists can make actual money during this lockout time. And so what I did is I had a little live listening party on Friday, and had people post their links, and then whoever didn't make the live listening party, I made a thread for that. And so we're going to play that. And because I know your tastes as far as hardcore tinge on the heavier side, that's why I wanted to kind of showcase a lot of more heavier, more chaotic metalcore grind. Some of them are straight up like caveman-y black metal that are members of hardcore bands. So I saw, this one that was like Ohtlatoc, Copa, whatever the Skull Rack band. That band was tight. I was checking them out before we started talking today, and I'm excited to hear that song again.
Yeah. So might as well, because I control my own fucking playlist. We're gonna go on that, but because I like to always somewhat start off with a more punk influenced song. We're going to start with one of your picks, which is a friend of both of ours that we work with on Capitol Hill. Kevin is who's in a band called FCON. He works security at one of our local music establishments, and is obsessed with a definite 80s style punk. Me and him have kind of argued. The last time I saw him was the day before the shutdown. He came into one of the places I worked. We talked a little bit because that was the last day pretty much anything was open. But there was also the quarantine episode. There was a quarantine show of Cro-Mags. And as far as metal and hardcore, he won't even step that far into the world of crossover. Because that's in the era of the 86 era is when a lot of thrash and metal and hardcore actually started to collide. And Cro-Mags, even Age of Quarrel is a very metal tinged. People who really like metal might not pick it up as much if you are a strict metal fan and don't dip your toes in hardcore. You'd be like, that's a punk record. But definitely most punk fans will be that's definitely more of a metal mixed with hardcore. Even older heads will call, if they're not really into deep hardcore discussions, will go as far as to call Cro-Mags metalcore. And some bands,
that's weird. I've never thought of them as anything other than a punk band, and that maybe that's just my particular take on that sound. But that's another, I guess kind of why I like Cro-Mags and why I like FCON, it's like the same reason. They both have this like really visceral sound that like translates really well live, and they both have intense stage presence.
Yeah, and it was just like it also depends on the world. If you dive strictly into punk and you don't really go into hardcore at all. I mean, go into metal at all. I can see where that's, for some people, that's as metal as you go. Because definitely all of FCON's influences is like right before that. Like all like a lot of early 80s. I know Kevin likes circle jerks. You can hear a lot of that type of stuff in it. It's definitely reminiscent of like street punk versus 80s early 80s hardcore. So and I think that's I think Kevin would be happy that I said that, and that's because I've had them on the show, him and some of his band on the show, couple, I think beginning of 2019, something like that. And that's where he likes to dip his toes in for as far as like his punk and his hardcore. So as far as the song, where is that song? They put out they Left to Rot, and that's on Tiny Dragon Music, which is all Seattle punk bands. I know some of the members of Burn 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 help run that label. I think this might be the most hardcore that it dips, because it's a lot of like kind of 90s style punk rock, a little bit of more on the 90s like Warped Tour pop punk style of music, a lot of worship to Fat Records and stuff of that lane. So yeah, I haven't played it in a long time, and it's been a while since I've mentioned Kevin and his music, and just Kevin is an overall just great guy.
Definitely love Kevin. Really glad that they're still going to be making music after all this is over. Kevin's been in pretty decent spirits from what I've seen. On social media, we're all in a work group because I also got laid off from the same place that he got laid off from. Basically, when they decided to, cut staff, they cut everybody but managers. And so I know that this is at least something that's going to like kind of make his day, just to be able to, hear his band on the radio and feel cool about himself. And not only that, but like just, genuinely really appreciate his band and everything that they're doing in the local scene. Like, they deserve every inch of respect that they get, and then some.
I know that there's also like, I know like as far as some of the younger hardcore kids, this is definitely skews like to an older style, but what kids would appreciate. It's just, I think a lot of like, I know Kevin's a busy dude, so he's like, when this wasn't happening, he was always fucking working and stuff. So I'm just like, I'm hoping to get some, other hardcore kids into this band as well, in Seattle, since it's such a like it's like this whole thing, things we're looking up, and not only in music, but like my personal life, it was like things were seemed to be looking up, and I think the universe like wanted to keep me in check, or keep the world, keep the human race in check real quick.
You, me, and everybody else in Seattle, it feels like, because before all of this was happening, so for those of you who have no idea, my relationship to Trevor, we work together at different security companies, and we've been doing that for the past 5 years now.
Yeah,
something.
About that.
We've been playing music together even longer, and I just remember some of my oldest memories of Trevor playing at the office in Puyallup when he was in Swing Low, and now that we're like coworkers, we still have all of these really cool memories that we can kind of bring up, and personal history that we still get to talk about on the job. And our jobs are very music adjacent. So whenever we are discussing how things are going, in our personal lives, it's almost like things are intertwined, because when we lost our jobs together. So just everything was going great. I was literally about to move into an apartment. I had all these plans to start working with the band that we're going to talk about it later, but I'm in a band called Cut Out, and we play kind of crossover, like metalcore, old school, like late 90s kind of botch influenced stuff. And it's like everything was looking up for everybody. Like people were like kind of feeling better about their positions. Like the security company that Trevor and I were working for, they laid us off temporarily so we can get our jobs back at the end of all of this. But the tough thing is that, especially for me, I was about to move basically and uproot where I was working steadily to Tacoma, and I was about to start making a higher wage and like actually start getting somewhere in life. And then all of a sudden it just all fell out from under me. And I'm sure it was pretty much the same for him, where he was like feeling pretty good about stuff. And then all of a sudden like this hit, and now none of us are making a whole lot of money.
Yeah. Like I know for a fact, like I was getting steady work raised. And also, like you said, the prospect of work in Tacoma was work closer to home was starting to become more and more of a reality for me as well as you. And it was so like, and we had our first like little family vacation for my family planned out, and I was planning on going to some fests this summer and a ton of other stuff that more than likely is just not happening for 2020. And
it's funny that you mentioned like the vacation thing. I actually had a vacation to Portland planned with some friends, and it was a hot debate topic as to whether or not we were going to go see Code Orange in Portland instead of the Seattle date, because the Seattle date was the day after we were leaving, and the Portland date was the day that we were planning on being down there. So I was thinking about like just going and stopping at that show, because Jesus Peace and a couple of other bands are playing that show that I really wanted to see. I'm not like the biggest Code Orange fan at this point. I like their older stuff, but their newer stuff just doesn't really hit quite like it used to. Nothing wrong with it. Like if you're a big fan of Code Orange, like I understand why, but I just like, for me, the newer stuff just kind of dropped off. It felt a little bit more gimmicky to me than some of the earlier offerings, especially as Code Orange Kids that they had put out. Which it's funny because the biggest complaint that I've heard from people is that their stuff is like going more radio friendly, and I'm thinking to myself like, man, they had some splits with Full of Hell where they were like, they were doing soft stuff, and it was like weird soft, like in a good way. And it almost feels like they're trying to do that again, but they're trying to spin it in a way that's going to hit the radio better. And I can't really like get into it as well as I could get into their older stuff.
Well, speaking of gimmicky, I'm going to go full YouTuber gimmicky and say, if this is your first time listening, I'm not going to go too much into Code Orange, because we have a full Code Orange deep dive on the podcast. So whatever device you're listening to for podcasting, Dead Air Hardcore Radio, you can type it in, and it's one of the more recent ones where I just sat down and deep dove the entire history from beginning to end. And to the person who decided to shout out to call out me saying like a lot, like, get over it. So to continue on a little bit, so yeah, check out that Code Orange episode. That's all I gotta say. I'm not gonna dive anymore because I dove for 2 hours on that band. Everyone on this show, or my guests, are allowed their takes because it is such a new topic. They just came out with a record, and a lot of people are talking about it. So it is very relevant, but we're not going to give it too much more time than I already have. So
I will say this really quick though. The music video quality, always top notch. I don't know if they're still doing stuff with Max Moore, but whoever's doing their videos has really stepped it up. They're doing great.
It's cool. It's so like it's so weird because in the world of like hardcore and like metal influenced hardcore music videos, like quality is not usually always there, or it's super just vanilla. It is like most hardcore, like you go to that one Harm's Way video from like 7+ years ago. It was just them playing in the woods. Then we got Sect was playing in an empty building, and it was like good quality, but like it was just a bunch of like high definition close-ups, and it was just like
that's really funny.
I was just like, it just basically it just showcases the quality of the person recording that video more than it showcases any type of like talent or originality. It's almost just like HD clickbait for the band to just get more likes on there, more listens funneling through, which that might actually be
funny that you mention it. That's a really solid talking point, actually, because cut out when we did our music video that basically it was just like a showcase. We paid Aaron Land for like good money to take care of a really simple edit for that music video because we didn't really have like a huge budget. But we're going to Jacob Hansen for our next one, and I think we're stepping it up and actually putting like a little bit more into it than just like, playing shots.
And it's a hard line to ride with hardcore music videos because like hardcore kids don't consume a lot of like music videos, and if they do, it's because it's like entertaining in like a funny way. I don't know. Did you ever see the Crooks to Kings music video with Brian Skiffington getting out of the trash can?
If it's the same one where they were literally all like cycling through the car and all that other stuff, I've definitely seen that one. Brian showed it to me in the back end of Real Art once. It was really funny because it was filmed at Viaduct back when it was Viaduct, and it just like they're all sitting in the alley behind the venue, just like crawling in and out of cars and like unloading and loading gear and just normal stuff that you would expect these kids to be doing. And I don't know. Brian is like a really serious person, but I feel like whenever he does actually crack a joke, it's like the funniest thing in the world because he just says it so straight faced.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, I know nothing about him around the time because I think I actually watched the video around the time the band was like really the most active doing things, like which was between like, I would say anywhere late 2006 to that early 2009, those years, I think they did the most. And that was like, and like by the time like they petered off in like 2010, like I remember them playing Rainfest and it was just like, nobody was doing the flat bill mosh wiggercore anymore of the like furious styles. Lane of music.
Gosh.
So when they opened up Rainfest, it fell flat. But and also the thing about that video is it was also resurfaced probably I think 3 years ago now, around 2017, because a website actually like compiled a list of the worst hardcore music videos of all time.
Oh my god! And that one made the list.
That one made the list.
I feel like they were trying to make that list,
and I believe they called Brian the hardcore Oscar the Grouch.
That's not far from true. I feel like he's definitely a grouchy man, but more like grouchy in a good way. I've never been made to feel uncomfortable by him in a way that like I've never been made to feel like I wasn't wanted at a space that he was at.
No, he's very grouchy and he will be very vocal about his music takes. Like you will post something and he will more than likely most of it is crap to him. Like and he will tell you it is, but you got to have thick skin and get over it because most of the time he's just a nice dude. Like cuz most of the time I'll post some stuff on my page and he will be the first to just like give me so much shit. Anyways,
if I had $1 for every time Brian told me that a band I like wasn't good, I would be totally set for the next several months.
I think so. One time, I don't know how I liked it. So I was playing in a band that's members of a bunch of other hardcore bands now, and I like joined it because they were actively touring, and I liked that. I thought, I was like, these guys play like pretty competent musicians, but it would be really dope if they started leaning towards a more hardcore style, because I think that would sound good. And I kind of caught in the transition of that, and Brian said, he was like, I don't want to be rude, and I want to try to say this in the best way, but you sound like Earth Crisis Slither. And I was, and if you don't know that record, it's their new metal release that came out in 2000, when it was basically an almost kind of like weird transition to what was going on in the year 2000 in the world of metal, of hardcore people who've been doing hardcore for, at that point, like 5-6 years, but decided to take an approach of what the Ozfest crowd was doing. And it was still kind of hardcore. It's still more hardcore than a Mushroom Head record or something like that. But it was but yeah, so when he told me that, I was like, I'm okay with that, because I am known for liking records like that, and I have no problem with Slither. I like Slither. I feel like if you listen to Slither, you would like it too. I like the No Warnings new metal record that they put out on Linkin Park's label, Machine Shop, in 2004. Yeah. It sounds, I love it. It's fucking. It's, in
a little bit, I want to get back onto this new metal kind of talk, just because of there's an album that I put into my honorable mentions for my albums of the year last year, and it's the new Korn record, and they put some stuff on that record, like just some riffs that sound like Despised Icon.
Okay, I don't see, this is why we're in two different worlds and two different lanes. I don't know how I feel about that statement right there. I actually, there's some other things in that lane of heavier music that I want to discuss, because you have more of an opinion on it. But I think it's time to get to some music. I honestly thought that I was like, man, I think we're going to be able to keep most of the songs here. I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, probably not. Like, I'm thinking we might have to bounce some songs out of here because we're talking a lot, but that's okay. That's totally fine. We're here to fucking chit chat, and we'll get to the music when we fucking feel like it. So, the next song I want to play. So you talked about that band that I sent you. That's actually, let me get to that. So the band is called Tzompantli. So I found that out. I had to watch a video to make sure I was correct, because this is Brian from Zabalba.
Oh, sick.
So that's how I found out. He actually self-submitted this song last week when we were doing the Bandcamp stuff. A longtime listener of Dead Air, also longtime friend of all the OG Dead Air crew, Kevin, Metal Shop, all that stuff. Kevin just recently did a little video interview, because Zabalba's coming out with new material, and I think put out a new song just literally right at the beginning of this quarantine. And I hate that that we're using this quarantine as like a timeline, but but that's how it has to be. And so I'm gonna go and let's see where I'm going. So we're gonna do the first track. So here's what I'm gonna do, because I'm not going to mispronounce songs. This will be on the playlist. This is the first track. If you go to zompantlidoom.bandcamp.com, you can download these 4 tracks for free. But because of these times and because the way that I had that thread set up, I want to make sure that people, they actually have a tape for sale too. That looks like, yep, they have a tape and a CD. So give them some money, buy this stuff. This is a really cool. I always like doom and death metal when it's people. It's more accessible to me when I know that it's made in a competent way through a hardcore lens, but still, like, there's no hardcore really influence to say on this, but it's definitely connects back to that Xibalba main Xibalba style in some way, because like as far as it goes is as Xibalba has evolved, there's less and less hardcore going into that band. But and I think that's what they want, because like if you know anything about the members, it's just they're straight up like all they talk about. If it's music, it's metal.
Yeah.
Like I don't
a lot of South American like heavy music definitely has that metal influence. They just eat that stuff up and it's great.
Yeah, so I mean, I know there's always some hardcore. So, but yeah, no, the artwork is really cool too. Like, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of this stairway. This fucking stairway to the top of a fucking temple. But it has somebody who looks like they may have tried to go to the top of this temple, but failed miserably, because you see his fucking rotted bones and a sword, and it looks like it's been cobwebbed over, and just as a warning sign that you should not fucking go up there.
That sounds like half the staff, or not the staff, but the half the customers at Comet Tavern.
Do not go to the upstairs. Things happen. That's all I'm going to say on that one. So we're going to play track 1 from Tzompantli. Check them out, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio.
What's up, motherfuckers? This is Deadair telling you to check out the brand new Deadair website now. Go to DeadairHardcoreRadio.com for all podcasted shows as well as news, reviews, and content you can't get anywhere else. Go now or feel the wrath of my cold hard robotic leg spin kicking you straight in the face.
said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late."
It's time to peel back that veil. Time to realize they sold you lies. You live in a fabricated fairy tale. Put your faith in the TV screen. We've been programmed into obedience. I lie alone. The master holds the leash. To keep you frustrated. To fight in the yard.
All right, we're back with Ray Budworth Memorial.
Remember that time I died? Remember that time we were at Meltdown, Trevor?
Oh my god. I've talked about, like, the last episode Chris came in, and so after you dropped me off, I had no idea all my friends were coming over right after we did Meltdown, and I worked a 21-hour shift, and
good God,
it was supposed to be 20, but I had to wait an hour for someone to actually come and get me out of there. And my battery was dead because
so Trevor and I shared a tent for 4 days. It was 4 days, yeah.
It was something. So we got there on like a Wednesday night, and then we left Sunday. So basically, yeah, 4 days.
Basically 4 days. And the very first night we got there, things were fine. And then I knew things were gonna go bad when Newman had me in that golf cart and was trying to tell me all of his really cool plans for how the weekend was gonna go. And then immediately had me get out and do parking duty because there wasn't somebody there. Dude. And I was like, uh-oh, that's bad.
Well, I was doing parking duty. I was doing traffic duty with no traffic equipment.
You and me both. They literally put us both there trying to direct traffic with no direction.
They stood me in the middle of the road, and I had my hands out, and I was parting the seas of the of Meltdown traffic, and they were like, somebody said, "Where did you go to traffic school?"
Implying we ever went to school for that at all.
I was like, I didn't know there was such a thing. There's a cross. I assume that there is like some sort of formal training, but like an entire crossing guard academy. Let's be.
So Meltdown was an interesting festival. There were a couple of cool acts that played, like Brother Ali. That was cool. I did enjoy Grammatic for what it was worth.
I listened to some of that stuff, and when I got home, a lot of it was like the equivalent to electronic elevator music.
Elevator, yeah. No, there were a lot of like really hippy dippy bands there that just like, I feel like the only way that you could have gotten somebody interested in them was by putting them on some hard drugs first, which is exactly what went on at that festival. So I was on essentially the weirdest equivalent to consciousness crew that existed for the absolute mess that festival is/was. Sorry if you're a big fan of it, but like, God, working that festival is literally a nightmare, and they should be shut down. But in general, it was a bad weekend, but with a good outcome in that we learned our physical limitations, and also that Trevor and I are really able to like get along even in like difficult circumstances. So
Yeah,
that was really cool.
dude. Well, the tent flooded at one
The
point.
tent flooded the second night. After the first day of work and us being there for like way too long and having to deal with a lot of garbage, then the tent flooded.
Yeah, no, that was the night where I was stuck there at this gate where like a lot of people came late, and they were yelling at me because I couldn't let them in and because the box office closed, and I just was like, there was a line of just so many people coming in, and it was
oh my God,
not taken care of very well, and I was somehow partially blamed for it when I had no idea. That wasn't even my assigned job for that day. That was not what I was supposed to do. I was actually supposed to work with you.
None of us were doing what we were supposed to do, except for me, kind of. They had me basically. I was supposed to be. I said consciousness crew. What they called us was rapid response. I think a more accurate term for that would have been vapid response, because what they promised us was a golf cart, and like, you know, this was like a big outdoor festival, so there's like acreage that we would have had to cover for all this stuff. So late at night, when everybody's, you know, tripping on whatever drugs they brought with them, we're racing around trying to make sure that nobody dies, basically. And so we're literally running like over acreage of just like harsh terrain and, you know, amphitheater seating, and like it was just an absolute mess, and like getting somewhere required an immense amount of travel that would have been way easier to cover in a golf cart, at least for like a majority of it. Like being on foot for certain things would have been fine, but holy crap, especially like late at night when it was dark out and we really could have used lights and like, you know, a big golf cart to like tell people like, hey, we got to get that direction because somebody's, you know, losing their marbles over here. It just, you know, not a good look for AEG at all, which, you know, just not a, I'm not sure if you have any corporate sponsors, but if you do and AEG is one of them, we can just edit that out.
Well, fortunately not anymore, since I don't think we've been tied with that venue, with that company since leaving KGRG, but we're going to bleep it out just in case I get a future like we'll cut some of that out.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so speaking of things that I wish would disappear, the band Disappear is a pretty near and dear band to my heart.
Let me hold you real quick, so because we have a set of music, so we'll get to that.
Oh.
So we have a few more songs that we did before that, so let's not jump ahead. So we're gonna do this. Okay. We're gonna do the set to tie with like kind of the straight metal influence. We have another song from your set. You know way more about this than me, but we kind of discussed that we're like in agreement. It's definitely like a shoegazy, death and black metal influenced band, like in the Death Heaven reign. A band called Sunyata. You can tell me a little bit more about it because I know nothing about it. It's cool. This goes into the when I'm shown a band like this, I'm very chill with it, but I don't dive deeper into the roots and the origins of some of these style of bands. So,
essentially, what this band really spoke to me on was like a level of, I've been a big fan of sort of the American black gaze movement. There are some bands that are really good in it, and some bands that are like, they're all right, and then there are just some bands that are just a cut above the rest. And so like a big corner of that for me, and a big influence for Sunyata is Harakiri for the Sky. And that band was supposed to play Terror Fest. I don't know if Terror Fest is just getting pushed back or if it's being canceled altogether, but I figured that this is sort of a relevant thing to folks that might be listening to this show because of the general consensus that band is just such a good band, and that there are other bands out there doing stuff that's in the same vein, but I wouldn't say exactly the same as that band. And it's for fans of that. If you're a fan of Death Heaven, I think you and I were talking about this earlier, that it's a pretty close
comparison
sound wise. Yeah, you can compare the two because they're definitely in the same vein as well. It's definitely more on the black metal side of things for sure, but the people that are involved with it are really upstanding folks. A lot of them are actually doing charity work right now over in Kentucky. They're kind of based out of Paducah, and I don't know if all of them are, but I know at least Trevor is. It's funny because I know this band through my friend Trevor, who played in bands with people who are local to us. So JJ Polacek, who played in bands like Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, that was from here.
That's such a throwback. I want to listen to that band to see if I actually still like it, because I was super young around the time that they were big.
The EP was way different than their full length. Like, if you listen to the full length, you'd probably still like that, but I don't know about the EP.
That was a time where that was with, like, around the time that they were really big was like 2006, when I would just, in any local show I'd absorb the atmosphere and the bands, and just because they were in a band, I was excited. And I was like, when I saw a band from my area playing on the floor or playing a random little hole in the wall, there was some sort of excitement because it was all super new to me, like just going to shows and like not knowing, like, oh man, I can talk to these people after the set. This is cool. Because obviously before you get out there, you have this idea of every person that picks up a guitar is a rock star. Like,
yeah, definitely. I remember having those. Oh shoot, these are just people. Like, that, I don't need to be starstruck about this anymore. And it helped me get more involved in the community when I stopped treating these folks like they were above me and started understanding that I was on the same playing field, because it put me in a better perspective of, like, I can do this too.
But yeah, like, I'll have to listen back to that band. I remember, like, I wore one of my friend's Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, like, bandanas, and one of the band members, like, saw me in public and it was like, oh, that's really cool. I was like, oh, I think I got like I said, I was still pretty, like, even though I was, like, very aware of hardcore and metal and stuff, I still, like, seeing people playing in bands in early high school was, like, before I could drive, was still, like, it was nerve-wracking. Like, oh my gosh, that was that guy from that band. Like, I'm not going to pretend. Like, there's a lot of those hardcore people who, you know, guess what? They had someone to put them on to, like, cool music and had, like, cool friends around them and grew up in some of them got to grow up in the community. Me, I jumped in it through a lot of awkward lanes, just like a lot of people through the internet, and just wound up here. And I feel like I
think we all did it by accident.
A lot of people pretend, like, there's people that want to be those stories and pretend that they were, you know, just ended up like some cool, like, hardcore or punk metal or whatever person. But I'm not gonna pretend. Most people who got into music, who are anywhere from, like, I would say, I can say confidently, anywhere from 30 to 18, it's all because of the internet.
Yeah.
So those in that 12
I definitely gap. I had the weirdest introduction to music ever that I can think of, because like the first shows that I started out going to were like literally just in church gymnasiums and whatnot, and they were like soft bands. And then the second that I was able to like, drive myself to shows, it stopped being like soft shows and started being like metal shows, and all the stuff that I could like eat up in terms of just like heavy stuff. Like all I wanted to do was go see metal bands play and hardcore bands play and whatnot. So but going back to it a little bit, Sunyata, so the track that we're gonna have by them, I think
we
it's
did
like
play.
6.5 minutes.
We already did play it. Yeah.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then forget I said that, and let me say this instead. That song it's an incredible journey, and the lyrics are definitely more on the side of like introspective and like sad on purpose. I think that Trevor, the guitar player, he does stand-up comedy with the likes of folks like Aaron, the drummer for As Cities Burn. And they're just like, they're from the same area. And so he's like a big stand-up comic, but, I think that his comment to his bandmates as they were going into the studio was, let's write a song about dying in the forest. And that was literally like the whole like joke about the stuff that they're putting out, is that it's just like about dying.
I feel like that tracks, like, I would say that overall sonic sound sounds like dying in the forest. I feel like that overall.
I'm sure he will be very glad to hear you say that.
Overall genre, like, I would feel like if dying in the forest had a direct tag to a sound, that would be that lane of music, definitely. And that's just my take from, like I said, my very shallow pool of references to this style of music. So moving on from that, the next song we played was Gouge Out. Flood Myth, a newer band that coins themselves as a 3-piece math rock metallic hardcore from Toronto. They sought me out. They had new music as of, and like I said, I like to use the beginning of the quarantine as the timeline for some of these bands. But around March 13th, which was basically sign of the beginning of the quarantine. Like literally right. That was like just right the Friday right before all of our security establishments got shut down. And
yeah, we were on for another week after that, and that week was one of the weirdest weeks I've ever had of work in my entire life.
Dude, the part like that night at Mario's, it felt like the last party of the end of the world. Like it's like our bosses were just like, I don't care. Just
right.
Like basically.
Well, I mean, they probably knew they were going to shut down anyway, so it was literally just like a last hurrah before. Like, I'm pretty sure Liquor Control Board was like, I'm not even going to bother going out tonight. I know some illegal stuff's going to happen.
I don't, and I can't confirm or deny. It's just more of a, yeah. It was that night was what it was. So going to Gouge Out, everything tracks really sonically with what with like the math rock. There's a lot more metalcore than I'm definitely hearing from this, like an earlier an early 2000s style of I'm trying to think, like Remembering Never is a band that definitely I hear, like it's full on panic chord with a lot of like still like heavy mosh influence. Nothing too crazy mathy with this band. So just came out. Shout out to you guys. Thanks for sending your shit in, and thanks for listening to the program and being all out cool dudes. I'm and we'll get to that next one too. It's just like I'm always really appreciative of people who like continue to reach out and support the show and like and treat it as a community, because that's kind of what I do, and that's why I want to try to facilitate, is just even if it's a smaller community on the scale of other podcasts and radio shows, I want to facilitate some sort of positive community with Dead Air, since we have been doing this for so freaking long.
Also, it's funny that you mentioned we were talking about Foes earlier as another band that's we're going to end up playing on the show today.
We already played. That's next up.
Okay.
So if you're
Awesome.
so if you want to save your thing, we just Ray, calm down.
Sorry, I don't know which songs you're playing. You didn't tell me.
I'm getting to it, and you're going on tangents.
God bless. You were talking about how they were a band that you could see the band that I'm in playing shows with. I feel like Gouge Out is another band like that.
Yeah, I was. So yeah, that's definitely. So if they ever make it this way, yeah, and that's why I picked it like this, because it's like sonically, I wanted to make a playlist that kind of was that linked up with your picks, because we had I think a lot like randomly that actually works perfectly with what we're doing for this show today, because I want to make it specific, because like normally I go on a more, like I said, like punk hardcore tip, and this is still part of hardcore, but I know you have in some of these lanes, you have more insight than I do, just because you're living that life, or in a modern lens, So, moving on, we played Turnaround King, new music from Foes. This band is from Central Oregon. They just premiered this on No Echo, Metallic Hardcore. I'm internet friends with Austin, who's in the band. They have their record is coming out. It's titled American Violence. That's coming out April 17th, I believe. I'm looking at this stuff, but yeah, like when I heard this, I was like, okay, this Metallic Hardcore tracks exactly with what you guys are doing, because it's like it's definitely has a more like chaotic influence with what they're doing. They go straight the fuck in. There's not a lot of not as much slowed down hardcore parts as of some of like the more modern I would say influences of metalcore, like in the pure noise realm, such as like Sanction or Typecast. I would say your band fits more in that, because there's definitely some straight up more. I specifically and I only have like one song right now to reference, but that's with the song that you have. That's I would link that more with that type of like more moshier hardcore, when there's definitely I would say a faster metal and a metal metallic hardcore influence in this specific band. Not as much mathy, but chaotic for sure.
They definitely, like I was telling you this earlier, but saying it on air so that everybody else is kind of getting the same vibe. When I was looking at this band's aesthetic, I've seen people wearing their merch, just like whether it was at other shows in Seattle or at other shows in other places that I was going to shows at, and I've always seen their logo and just gone like, that looks like a band that I would be into. Like they kind of have that Magruder grind aesthetic going on with their album cover for their new record a little bit. Their name font looks a little bit more like Magruder grind, and that's like definitely something that I can appreciate. And so like they always looked like a band that would be really interesting to me. And then I listened to it before the show today, and I was like, yeah, I was absolutely right. This band is absolutely what I expected out of like that aesthetic, and definitely like finds me in a good spot. I actually really like how this band sounds.
So that leads us to our next band. We've had them all on the show, the entire band, which is very rare, because I'd never get a full ass band to actually commit to all being in one place. So, but comes back to like what I said about Gouge Out, of just like of people that have been really supportive and just nice people and supportive of what we do with Dead Air, and have always been engaging with what we do. So and just overall just people who are stoked on hardcore. So yeah, Disappear. We're going to we did play a track, Obedience Training. You picked that out. That's off of their 9-song release titled Momentum that was put out last August, August 2nd, from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Take it away with what you would like to say about the band.
Oh yeah, so Disappear is actually a band that I know personally pretty well. Jared and I played in a different iteration of Erode from the original one. I think our first and only show with that band was with Comeback Kid, To the Wind, and Culture Abuse, as well as the band Blunt Force on 420 at Real Art.
That's so funny.
That was just the wildest show I think I've ever played, because like it was a childhood dream to play with Comeback Kid. I'd been listening to them forever. Culture Abuse has been on my like regular listening grid since probably that show. I don't think I've stopped listening to them since then. And then obviously To the Wind being one of my favorite local bands that's ever existed. Like that was a dream lineup, and in terms of like best show I've ever played, I feel like that's the one. But in general, I got to know Jared pretty well over that. He was my Sweetwater dealer for a while, and then he started this band out in Indiana.
Wait, what?
After he moved.
Sweetwater? What?
Sweetwater, the music, it's basically just like a online Guitar Center, but with even better prices and like better service.
All right, I'm vocalist here, so sorry.
No worries. I mean, they sell microphones too, I'm sure. But the point is that like I got to know him really well over the course of it, and then probably several months to a year after Jared went out there, his drummer came out to visit Seattle for like a week and had been talking about moving out here or something like that. And I got to show him around Capitol Hill and like introduced him to a few of the folks that are from around here. He wasn't 21 at the time, so we didn't get to actually like go in. He didn't get to like see Comet Tavern or anything like that, but got to really show him around the hill and like show him the ropes out here. And he just seems like such a genuinely stoked dude on hardcore, and in general, like I can't speak enough to how kind those folks are. It's just incredible to me to see how well they're doing. They're actually still planning a tour with I don't know if Ghost Key still exists, but Chris Bayless that played in that band is starting another band called Bull Cult out in Indiana as well. Or I think that they actually are like a Chicago band. I'm not 100% sure, but I know he was doing. He does what we do, but in Chicago. And so Bull Cult and Disappear are going to be touring together at some point after all of this COVID stuff is over. And I'm sure it won't come out this way, but I would love for both of those bands to tour out this direction, because that would just be a really awesome show.
Yeah, no, and I feel like we talked a lot about their influence. It's like in the show that we had with them back in like I think it was September, October. Maybe even August. I don't remember. It's sometime in the latter part of last year we had the band on, and it was a lot of new age record bands, a lot of metallic bands. In their bio, they take cues from Turmoil and Integrity, stuff like that, and you can definitely hear. I hear a lot of, like I said, late 90s type stuff going on with Disappear, of course, and it's metal and it's angry, so that's what I gotta say about that. So we're going to play a track from you guys, right? So cut out.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So the tracks that I think you said that you played a track of ours last week or something like that.
Yeah, we played the video track because we have it on we have a like that little the little blurb for on the website about the video.
Rad. So yeah, the tracks were on through Cameron Heck. He recorded us. For those of you who don't know, Cam is the vocalist in the band XRAWRX. He has recorded countless hardcore over the years. He did the most recent Odd Man Out record. He did
Lower Species,
Gag's new stuff.
Yeah,
he did Lower Species. So there are a lot of bands that he's been involved with that have definitely seen some airtime on the show, and are pleased to be counted among them that he's worked with. He did an incredible job of making stuff sound pretty close to what we had planned out for live. And some things have changed since then. Obviously, like we got a guitar player after the fact, and then we've got some plans in the near future. Not necessarily to pivot sound wise, but like just we're stepping some stuff up. We got a little bit bigger budget that we're to 2020. And it's odd to say that in this particular moment, but like once all of this is over and we have our jobs back, I'm pretty sure we've got plenty of energy and time to put into making some more music. But this song that we're about to play is called Static. And it was the very first song that we wrote as a band. And when I say wrote, I'm using the term loosely because at the time it was more or less Gabe putting direction in with riffs, and Gabe kind of hit us all up, and we're basically, just threw a bone out on Facebook, and those of us that responded. And it's music that resonates with all of us in a pretty solid way. We all really enjoy this like chaotic metalcore that kind of takes its roots in yesteryears. Even actually, I guess, as somewhat as recent as the older Stray from the Path kind of stuff. You can definitely catch vibes with like the whammy, like the ignorant use of whammy on some of our songs. This song was a lot of fun to kind of hash out, and I think that the stuff that we have coming up in the next round of music that we release is definitely going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot harder, but this is still like the fun punk side of things that I definitely think this is probably our most punk adjacent song.
Okay, I can track with that. I will. Let's give this a listen. You're listening to Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio.
I can't forget. Part to the crowd, I'm going to take it all. Fear to the blood, I'm surely rising up. Well, here goes.
Flower Chains Collective.
I felt like I was watching a dream I'd never wake up from.
DIY clothing you can't get anywhere else.
Now you have something to look forward to after you die.
Information at flowerchains.us.
Night, the devil calls you back. touch, lightning of broken spirits, burn away, coated in gloom, slave to the midnight sun, right belong to the sea, slave to the midnight sun, right belonging to sea.
All right. We're back. Listen to Dead Air, 2 hours of hardcore radio. We are reaching the end of episode 87, Lockdown in Puyallup. Trapped in Puyallup. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I said we weren't going to go on a tangent, but we should go on a quick trapped talk real quick.
It's like trash talk, but trap talk. Got it. So I have been following this absolute mess on Twitter pretty closely. I even tweeted it trapped. I told them I'm sorry. No. Actually, I didn't tell them I'm sorry. I told Nickelback I was sorry that they keep getting all of the crap that we should have been giving Trapped the whole time.
That's so funny.
That was my contribution to the mess to all 120 of my Twitter followers. I don't have very much of a Twitter presence. I probably should have just Facebooked that, but either way. I felt like that entire thing was really funny because it just seemed like everybody saw Trapped say something really stupid on the internet, which, I feel like there should be a rule, like an unwritten one, even if that is the case, where if you say something stupid on the internet, expect everyone to come out of the woodwork and just dog on you for like a solid day and a half.
Okay. So to make this conversation real quick. So if you've been living under a rock, Trapped said some pretty shitty things that you would expect from a Trumpster. They've been whining on the internet for years now. Started around 2014 when Lorde won the Rock Act of 2014 at the Grammys or something, and then they just started blowing up Twitter and that was like the first time Trapped at that point was like mentioned in like 10 years. And from then on, for the past like 6-7 years, they've just been whining on the internet. This is nothing new. I believe they said something along these lines, a couple years ago as well. And people gave them shit. It's just that now everybody is in their house and everybody's online and everybody got focused on it. And also lots of different bands from Power Trip to like a bunch of other like Warped Tour style bands like Attila and some bands like that have all like ganged up on this band. And a lot of people are like, what the fuck? Where did this band fucking come from? This fucking one hit wonder. And all they've been doing is just like, they've been acting like Trump. They've been like, they're the Trump of bands. They're taking pictures of old, like, of old shows that they played at festivals and saying, look at our audience. And on top of it, they just last weekend played a show when they're not supposed to, during this lockdown, and had a bunch of people show up. So if you went to a Trap show over the weekend, please don't even talk to me because I'm afraid that you're going to give me coronavirus through the internet.
Over the internet, yeah, over the internet. It's
so
guaranteed, or at least like some brain damage or something.
So,
I don't know.
And my thing about, as much as I dislike Trapped, and I did used to like, I admitted me and my older friends, we used to listen to a lot of alt rock, so I was cool. I was like, you know what? I did like a couple Trap songs back in junior high and whatever. So it is what it is. I don't expect anything less from this band, but I didn't think that like, so with, I think it was still just like pointless for the dudes in Power Trip to like egg them on and start talking about their crowd sizes too. I thought that was just like, come on, man. I respect Power Trip as a band. Don't like fall in. I know you guys are bored and annoyed, like, but don't fall into this trap. Like, just because you are the better band, don't just take the high road and just leave them the fuck alone. So that's all I gotta say on Trapped Talk. And thank you for listening to our Trap Talk. We have only a little bit of time, so we're gonna talk about music. So we played your some more new music from Cutout, Static. That'll be out at some point. I guess this is the premiere
It is the premiere,
to the world. So world premiere of Cutout Static. If you liked what I posted online, I think this song, I like this song even more. This song is really, I like this song, but this song, I don't know, it appeals to me. Like you said, it was a more hardcore and has some more punk sensibilities. I definitely agree. There were some bass parts that I really enjoyed from that.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, and you're the bass guy. I
am the bass guy.
You are the bass god.
So I have a joke. It's an inside joke, and only myself and Cutout and Lauren Valenzuela, who played in Cut Both Ways, know about this. Lauren was originally a member of Cutout also for this new iteration, and she did all of the low vocals on the record. On the 3 songs that we initially did. And in the music video for Such a Prison, at the very end, those are her vocals that I'm screaming, and it's her voice, which is really funny because nobody knows that except for now all of us know, but like in general, nobody knew that except for her, me, and Gabe and Seth.
I didn't even catch on.
That part has always been really funny to me, and thanks, Lauren, for making me sound really good.
I thought it was. I thought because I saw, I was like, that could be Ray. So I didn't.
I know it. Lauren's just got some pipes. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, I wanted to get into a little bit of dichotomy really quick because then one of the last songs that we're going to play on the show is actually some of my bandmates are in another band that is called Strangers, but I think they're changing their name to Low Blood soon. And the reason that they have to change their name is because there's a band on the East Coast called Strangers that went down to being just 2 members. And even though the Strangers from our neck of the woods had that name first and were tracking better online, they sent our PNW Strangers a cease and desist, so now they have to change their name.
Damn.
So long story short, this is the better Strangers, like by all accounts. I've listened to maybe 1.5 of the other song or of the other band, 1.5 songs of theirs, and it just was not good. It was nothing quite to the level of what the Pacific Northwest version of Strangers has in store for you all. So Gabe, that does the vocals in Cutout, and Seth, that plays guitar in Cutout. We have 2 Seths in Cutout. One plays guitar, the other one plays drums. The guitar player Seth and Gabe both play in Cutout, or both play in Strangers, and along with them, we've got like host culture from around here. We've got Chris, I'm spacing on his last name, Chris Rose, that plays bass in that band, and he's a really, really close friend of mine. We play Monster Hunter all the time, a bunch of nerds. And then just, really solid guys, really good group of guys. They're doing a little bit more of the Slipknot vibe, in my opinion. I feel like that's kind of the brand of like core metalcore that they're reaching into. Is like it's like that borderline new metal, but it's definitely influenced by a lot of punk and thrash and even some like more modern day metalcore from the early 2000s. They have a really solid sound. They're recording with some really solid production value and a really good producer. And I know that they have a new music video coming out soon. I don't know what the names of the songs are or anything like that. I know that they've been teasing it on socials, so go and give them a follow online. It's Strangers PNW. If you go and look them up right now, I'm sure that the name change will happen soon, but you won't find them under Low Blood just yet. And I'm honestly hoping that they don't have to change their name, although I do like the idea of their name being Low Blood. It's a cool name.
It's a better name, in my opinion. Like, just like if I'm thinking of like merch, do I want Strangers or do I want
Low Blood? Yeah, I guess I see where you're going with that. I think I'm a little bit bitter about how that other band just like thought that they were hot stuff.
I get where you're going with that. So after that, so we played the song Hollow from strangers / low bloods, or low strangers, strange blood. And then we're gonna go down the line of some more submissions. Basically the whole rest of this is submission based. And thank you for those. We have a band called Bodiless from New Jersey that submitted their stuff. A very has some post metal, ambient, but still like has a resounding like hardcore punk influence.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated that band.
You can definitely. It's not just your like what you would averagely think of ambient like metal. It definitely, you can still hear like in the vocals that this is a hardcore band. And you can still hear in some of the parts that this is still pulling from hardcore, especially because this is coming from New Jersey as well. So this was actually, when was this? This was a couple years ago now. This was released in December 4th, 2018. This is their only stuff, so I'm assuming probably more in the works from there. Then we have another band from Portland, Oregon, called 1111, all in the Roman numerals. Some more black. This is definitely black metal with some blackened hardcore tinge. Definitely more absorbed in a black metal lens than a hardcore lens. But like I said, you could still hear, if you are a fan of blackened hardcore, you can still hear where the blackened hardcore comes from. And I'm thinking at this point, I don't know what your opinion is. I think still Oregon is kind of beating us with music, like as far as the Northwest, like with coming out, like we do come out with quality music, but I think Portland is getting there a little faster at times.
Yeah, they definitely have a really solid scene right now, especially for like blackened hardcore and just related, I guess, adjacent genres to that. They have a lot of really solid musicians down there. There's a lot of like really good doom musicians too that have kind of crossed over into hardcore or gone over to doom from hardcore, and so there's just a lot of really like blackened. Just influence on both ends of that. Now, were we going to play that Blame God song or no?
We did not. We're going to run out of time, unfortunately.
All right, no worries. Well, I'll shout them out anyway because they've been really cool to me for the longest time. Those guys are really cool. Go check them out too.
Check out our a couple episodes back with MJ because we definitely deep dive into that band as well.
Oh yeah, that band rules.
So after that, we played a band. We talked about the dude, Cameron Heck. He's done so much.
Oh yeah.
Like as far as like recording his hardcore resume with Lower Species, Odd Man Out, you said Gag. Like literally, like if you are listening to this, you wouldn't think about it, but that's because like this is definitely more of his lane musically. We talked about it like last night before we did the show. Definitely a white belt band that does not take themselves too seriously. And if you're listening to white belt, I think that's kind of what you want in some sense. You don't want too self-serious when it's like this grindy.
Yeah, I don't think that any band that takes themselves too seriously ends up coming across quite the way they want to. And so like white belt kind of plays on that idea of, you know, if we're not going to bother taking ourselves super seriously, then we might as well just not take ourselves. And they end up getting the message across a lot better sometimes when I at least that's how I felt, because it's a lot of stuff that can be said tongue in cheek and you're not really sure whether or not they're serious when they say it. And so it like causes you to question things. And then that like actually brings about real like thought processes and makes you think about things you wouldn't have otherwise like taken the time out of your day to really dichotomize. Is that a word? I think that's a word.
It could be. I'm not sure. I'm not a wordsmith. I just usually I don't like to deep dive into like the vocabulary. I just like this is good. This is not good.
Yeah.
This rips. There's a lot more other programs to that have better word choices than mine. But I will we'll continue on. I'll digress. After that we played Inner Turmoil, a band that's been submitting for quite some time, so I wanted to really get to it. Definitely that heavy East Coast has that whole East Coast mentality when it's coming to the music. We played the song Submerged. They're from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Check them out for fans of bands like Bitter End, which is one of my favorite hardcore bands of all time, actually. So check out Inner Turmoil, and then we're going to end this with a band called Holy Flesh from Germany. That was, I believe, self-submitted. They have a track off of their latest 7-inch called Not Getting Through. The 7-inch, when did it does not say when it was. Oh, it actually, this is all brand new and shipping out at the on April 1st. So it's we're gonna play that song. It's very black and roll, some hardcore with some very rock and roll influence. A very steady tempo, nothing too fast or too slow. Very middle of the road. They say sledgy. There's a little bit of it pulls from a little bit of sledge influence, but I'm definitely hearing a rock and roll influence specifically from this band. Mr. Ray Budworth, what are your final words?
Thank you for having me on the show. I also, for those of you who are interested, am in a tech death band that is doing some charity work. We're called Agaron. Trevor can leave a link to the song that I'm doing the vocals on in whatever list he wants to, if that's cool with him. And we won't be playing this song on the show today, but basically it's a very eco-friendly music situation. We like to talk about environmental issues. We like to talk about political issues, and it's fun for us. We don't take ourselves very seriously in terms of the writing process. So there's definitely some parts where we have really fake drums on purpose. But the gist of it is that we're giving back to the community with the project, and our first album raised $4,000 for a battered women's home. We've donated to some environmental causes since then. I'm not entirely sure what this new record is going for just yet, but we have talked about a couple of different charities, so I'm hoping that we get to that stage. And if you do feel like paying money for that album, feel free to do so. The money will be going to a worthy cause. And if you don't have money right now because you're out of a job, download it for free. It's free on Bandcamp. And outside of that, it's been really fun getting to play and cut out recently. I promise you we'll have some shows soon. We were going to play with Meth, and then that got pushed back a little bit. I don't know if that show's still going to happen, but it'd just be really cool to see those of you who are out here in the Pacific Northwest at some shows come up and say, hey, add me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to talk to, pretty easy to get to know. And if you folks need any resources, say you're out of a job, I can definitely plug you into some for that as well, especially if you're service industry. So again, thanks for having me on the show, and I appreciate every single thing that Deadair does.
Thank you so much. All right, we're getting to that song from Holy Flesh, Getting Through. We'll be back next episode. We got Kevin from Metal Shop. It'll be fun. All right, you listen to Deadair, 2 Hours of Hardcore Radio.
From the past, staring boys, turning captive with blood. Kiss me the dead with an inch so sweet.